Sometimes cruelty is born on the very day that should have been the happiest, and sometimes destiny sends someone capable of changing everything. Lucía was 18 and had such a pure heart that many considered her naive. She grew up in a small town where tradition weighed more than dreams, and where a young woman was expected to feel proud of reaching marriage untouched. She never thought much about that. She simply hadn't loved anyone enough to give herself. But her fiancé, Dario, wasn't a man who valued innocence or heart. He was the son of a wealthy family, arrogant and obsessed with appearances. For him, the wedding wasn't an act of love, but a spectacle meant to impress everyone. From sunrise, Lucía felt that something strange was in the air. Her white dress felt heavier than beautiful, and although her mother cried with joy upon seeing her, Lucía couldn't ignore the knot in her stomach. Still, she did what she had always done. She smiled and moved forward, hoping her bad feeling was nothing more than nerves. The wedding hall was enormous, decorated with white flowers and golden lights that seemed to float in the air. More than 200 guests filled the tables, laughing, drinking, waiting to see the shy young woman become the wife of the arrogant heir. But among the guests was someone almost no one knew, Alejandro Cruz, a discreet millionaire, a distant friend of Dario's father, owner of several tech companies, famous for his reserved nature. He wore an impeccable black suit and observed everything with an unreadable expression. No one imagined this man would change Lucía's destiny in a matter of minutes. When the ceremony ended and the speeches began, Dario stood up with a twisted smile, holding the microphone as if he were about to tell a joke. Lucía, seated beside him, felt a chill run down her spine. He gave her a mocking look before speaking. "I want to thank everyone for coming," he said, "and I also want to share a truth about my wife." He said the word wife with a tone that made several guests murmur. And then, in front of everyone, he said what should never be said. "My dear Lucía came to this day a virgin." He laughed. "Yes, a virgin at 18. I didn't know that still existed." Laughter exploded like a whip. Cruel laughter, laughter that tore Lucía's soul apart. Someone whistled. Another shouted, how old-fashioned. A few women covered their mouths in fake surprise while whispering behind their hands. Lucía felt her cheeks burn, her hands tremble, and her heart break into pieces. How could the man who promised to protect her expose her like that? Why turn something intimate into a public spectacle? Her mother covered her mouth to hold back tears. Her father stood up in outrage, but Dario ignored him. "I thought she'd at least have some experience." Dario continued cruelly, "But oh well, I'll just have to teach her." That was the final blow. Lucía felt the world blur. She wanted to stand up, run, disappear. How could she have been so wrong? How could she have agreed to marry someone so heartless? Just as Dario prepared to say another humiliation, a deep voice filled the hall. Enough. Silence fell like an icy curtain. Everyone turned toward the back table. Alejandro Cruz was standing, holding his glass calmly, but his gaze burned with pure fire. "I listened to you talk long enough, Dario," he said with dangerous serenity. "What you just did not only shows your lack of respect, but your lack of manhood." A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Dario turned red. "Who do you think you are to interfere in my wedding?" he spat. Alejandro walked toward him, each step filled with natural authority. "I'm someone who does not tolerate seeing a woman humiliated by the man who promised to love her," he replied, "and someone who knows more about your history than you think." Lucía looked up for the first time since her humiliation, and her eyes met his. In those eyes she saw something she had not seen all night: respect, compassion, righteous anger. Alejandro turned to the guests. "You want the truth?" he asked. "Then listen. A woman's purity is not measured by her body, but by her heart, and from what I see, the only impure one here is the man who enjoys humiliating a defenseless young woman." Dario clenched his fists. "Get out of my wedding." "With pleasure," Alejandro said, "but she's coming with me." A collective gasp filled the hall. Lucia's eyes widened. What are you saying?" she whispered. Alejandro leaned toward her. "That you don't deserve to stand beside someone who destroys you. You deserve to be treated like a human being, not a trophy or a joke." Dario laughed. She deserves better. She's just an inexperienced farm girl." Alejandro looked at him with utter disgust. "Your greatest tragedy is not knowing how to recognize a treasure when it's right in front of you." Dario's father attempted to intervene, but Alejandro had already extended his hand toward Lucia. She trembled. She didn't know whether to accept it. All her life she had been taught to endure, to never cause a scene, to obey. But for the first time, a spark ignited inside her, a spark of dignity. She took Alejandro's hand. The hall erupted into rumors. "If you leave, don't come back." Dario shouted. Lucia turned, finally strong. "Don't worry," she said softly but firmly. "I wasn't planning to." Alejandro led her outside, shielding her with his imposing presence. Phone flashes burst everywhere. People recorded, shouted, gossiped. He opened the car door and waited for her to sit. When they drove off, Lucia finally broke down crying. "I'm sorry for causing trouble," she sobbed. "Don't apologize for another man's cruelty," Alejandro replied. "And don't worry. Today you didn't lose anything. Today you were freed." The road to the city was quiet, but it was a comforting silence. Alejandro didn't pressure her or ask invasive questions. He simply drove calmly, giving her time to breathe. "Why did you do that?" she finally asked. "I once watched someone I loved be destroyed by a man just like Dario," he confessed. "And I swore that if I ever saw it again, I wouldn't stay silent." He took her to an elegant but modest hotel. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "You owe me nothing. I just want you safe. And tomorrow," she whispered, "what will happen to me, whatever you decide." In the following weeks, Alejandro became a quiet protector, an unexpected support. He helped her find an apartment, continue her studies, discover her worth. He never pressured her, never took advantage, just stayed by her side with infinite patience. And one day she took the first step. "Alejandro," she said timidly, "thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see myself." "You don't need to thank me." "Yes," she insisted. "Because thanks to you, I learned to love myself." He swallowed. "Lucia. And I also learned," she whispered shyly, "that the heart doesn't care about age to awaken." When he hugged her, it wasn't impulsive or desperate. It was the embrace of two souls who had found home in mutual respect. And so, the girl who was humiliated on her wedding day ended up finding something far more valuable than a marriage. She found a man who would never let her fall.